Appreciate people are pouring through the doors as we speak. So we will just let a few more people get in and then we'll kick off. If you've joined one of mine and Jordan's webinars before, you'll have a good feel for the style by now. There will be some slides to give us support and give us a little bit of contextualizing, but there'll also be me asking Jordan a chunk of questions and him sharing his opinions on the different themes within the deck. And a good opportunity, as I've said before, for Jordan to answer all the questions in the Q&A, because he's far more seasoned at working out what is going on in the Q&A than I am at any given time. So we'll do all of those things as usual, but we will just give everybody a minute to get themselves in, get themselves settled, and get thinking about those questions related to proving ROI of data and AI literacy, because proving ROI and proving value is hard from data programs generally, or you could argue we as an industry make it hard for ourselves, but that might be a good, interesting topic. But definitely from data and AI literacy, it can be difficult. So we'll talk about it in that context. Seems to be plenty of comments coming in. I don't know if those are just hellos. But yeah, we've got things coming into the chat right now, and we'll get going in a second.
They're talking about the heat, my friend, that I know you're experiencing right now, Greg.
Oh yeah. So for anybody who's joining from the UK, obviously bless you, because if you're dealing with the same lack of aircon and same 35 degrees centigrade in 90 degrees Fahrenheit that we're dealing with, yeah, good on you, because it's a hard yard right now. Okay, let's get going then. So super quickly, in case you haven't come across either me or us before, my name is Greg Freeman. I am the CEO and founder of Data and AI Literacy Academy. We are a business that specializes purely in taking enterprise organizations through their own data, AI, literacy, and culture journey. And one of the big things that we focus on and care about is evidencing ROI, so that you as a stakeholder can be really proud of the work that you've done and you've brought into your organization, but also so that we as a partner can show that we've been valuable, and hopefully we get to give more value as the years go on, because we actually show that this works. So lovely to be here with everybody. I'll be leading the session. We'll do our best to give you some time back at the end of the hour, but if we don't, we don't. And I will hand over to Jordan to introduce himself now.
Yeah, thank you, Greg. My name is Jordan Morrow. I'm the CEO and founder of Bounty Data and the Senior Vice President of Data and AI Transformation at Agile One, but become good friends with the Data and AI Literacy Academy. My background is I help invent the field of data literacy, and so I'm selective on who I partner with, and I actually think the Academy is the #1 organization, not just in Europe, but on the planet, that is doing this and helping organizations succeed from a data and AI literacy perspective. So happy to be partnering with them and helping them out.
Well, that is very kind, Jordan. We appreciate you. So let's start with this as the premise, right? Why does today's topic matter? It is because every enterprise organization has access to the same AI capabilities. We don't work with a single business that says it can't afford to do AI to some level. That isn't the narrative. That isn't the rhetoric right now, okay? Microsoft, Amazon, Google, Anthropic, whoever it is, they will sell all of you their wares, and you do have the money to buy them, is the fundamental logic. I'm not saying everybody can spend exactly the same amount on it, but what it comes down to is that there's a lot of opportunity out there, and most enterprise organizations are ready to take the chance and go for it. However, spending money on the technology, spending money on the consultancies to come in and implement them isn't actually the competitive advantage. The competitive advantage comes from the ability to design things, run them, and use data and AI that consistently actually impacts the day-to-day decisions across the organization. The way we operate, the efficiencies, the behaviors, the decisions we make at an executive level, right down to that frontline worker who's speaking to a customer, Are those things actually being adopted and used for competitive advantage to make money, save money, and beat your competition? Or solutionize for your stakeholders in a different way if you're a government organization or a third sector organization? But the best way of doing things is to actually do it, and that is going to be improving decisions and improving actions across the organization. So how do we measure that, and how do we measure that transformation is actually taking place? So really nice kind of stat here. You're going to get 3 times faster AI adoption in organizations with structured literacy programs. That's actually reflected in a lot of the big organizations' research. So a lot of the big consultancies have done their own research, and they themselves have got their own structured literacy programs, like Accenture, McKinsey. They're all running their own internal structured literacy programs with their consultants, and they're seeing that greatly faster adoption. But what should we actually be measuring? So you've got your human metrics. You've got simple stuff that we would consider probably your kind of like L&D type metrics. So if you're an L&D person on this call, some people will see these and go, yeah, absolute no-brainer to do those things as a measurement. So pre and post skill assessments, self-efficacy tracking and confidence scores. So how do I as an individual think that I am before I start the education versus how I am after the education? Do I do some sort of like knowledge or competency test before the process and after? Those really are your human baseline metrics that are part of any L&D program. However, they are not enough. And they are not the things that are really going to help you as a data leader or an AI leader, or even as an operations leader, show the value of investing in this type of process. Because ultimately, confidence is one thing, changing the things in the operational metrics and business impact columns is actually what we care about here. So things like adoption rates across tools. Speaking to an organization about 4 or 5 days ago, they have invested in 7,000 Copilot licenses. Okay, not an uncommon thing to do, not even a silly thing to do, really. But when they look at their active users are at less than 50% of that 7,000. And these are all knowledge workers. So this business is about 14,000 people. It's 50% knowledge workers, 50% manual workers. And we're talking about the 7,000 knowledge workers here. They've all got access to a Copilot license. They've all been told they've got access to a Copilot license. Less than 50% of the people have actually used it. Okay, so there again, you've got a massive adoption gap. You've already got a gap in, we've spent this money, are we making the most of it? Then you want to be tracking things like frequency of data-driven decisions. And I think obviously something else that Jordan's talked about once or twice before, but I'll let him talk about now, is not just frequency of data-driven decisions, but speed to data-driven decisions, speed to insight. So do you want to talk about that as a measurement and why that's so important?
Yeah, I think in the age of AI, we're missing a great opportunity to craft new metrics and measurements around data and AI because of the velocity that we're able to get there. And what that means is, yes, we have to upskill and reskill. And in parallel, we should be trying to innovate and create. I don't like the word disrupt because I think it has a negative connotation. I like creation and innovation. Well, with AI, this PhD on our shoulder at our fingertips gives us this ability to do it quickly. And now the human is in the loop. All that has to remain. But that ability to come to insight faster should empower us to be more strategic. Get rid of some of the mundane and be strategic with it. So velocity of insight, velocity of decisions, those things should be a part of how we're looking at this.
Fully agree. And then we've got workflow integration stats. And I would say a really key point for this one, you could just measure which processes today either didn't have automation and integration before and now do. But a better view of this, in my opinion anyway, or in our opinion as a business, and a lot of the things that we see in the industry, is how many workflows or how many data flows or how many business processes have been genuinely burnt down and redesigned around data and AI. Because if all you're doing is adding AI as an overlay on poor processes that already exist, and most human processes are actually not that well designed because they were designed about 20 years ago, and then people have stuck things onto the side of them that have made them like very kind of like Frankenstein's monster. So if all we do is overlay more information and more AI on top of that, all we're doing is making a bad process more efficient. I think really working out, have we burnt down some processes, removed all the clutter and streamlined them, and then off the back of that, seen improvements? That's really what we should be looking at from a measurement of impact from workflow integration. In terms of business impact, this is one that we focus on quite a lot at Data and AI Literacy Academy, and I'll speak through a handful in the next few slides. But the quality of the use cases that are coming out of the business. So as you become more data and AI literate as an organization, your people will be far more aware of the business problems they can solve using data and AI. And therefore, if they are thinking about, as I've just mentioned, a process that doesn't work right now, and rather than going, well, I'm just going to put Copilot on it and make some bits faster, they're going, actually, I want to speak to you as a data office, or you as an AI office, or you as a technology team, and I want to burn that down and redesign it with you. That is a quality of use case that is coming out of the literacy program that you wouldn't have had before. And therefore, you stack those up, you compound those over time, and those use cases improvement in quality has a direct measured impact and almost definitely a measurable ROI in the way that we'll talk about in a second. Then you've got your throughput and efficiency gains. So our process is taking less people, happening faster, linked to that speed to insight Jordan mentioned earlier. But actually, do we get answers back to a customer quicker? Or do we get sales moving through the pipeline faster? Or do we understand our marketing messages wrong quicker because we've used data and AI, or we've got a more data and AI literate workforce? All those things fit into that throughput and efficiency gains. And then this is a really big one. So reduction in reworks. A massive value of literacy is the conversations that happen between the data team, the AI team, and the wider business get better, which means that the requests that come in also get more structured, more valuable, and closer to what your business partners actually need, which means you as a data and AI office do less rework, spend less time, less money, less of those, oh my God, this business person's so frustrating, or on the flip side of that, oh my gosh, that data engineer or data analyst doesn't know what I'm talking about, why don't they? All of that dissipates by having a more literate workforce, and measuring how much of that goes on now versus how much of that goes on in 12 months' time, 18 months' time, that's going to be a really big win of the measurement of the change as well.
Hey, Greg, real quick, Jess threw a question into the chat that we could address right here because L&D was part of the conversation. It says, how do we communicate to stakeholders that this is beyond L&D? Thinking for businesses where L&D is being scaled back. Here's the reality of it. The messaging is, to your point, Jess, the communication, the transparency, and the messaging is top of mind. When you think about data and AI, a lot of it, people focus in on the tech. 90 to 99% of your success might be driven by the people. I mean, you could have the most brilliant model in the world, the most brilliant AI, data-driven solution, and nobody touches it. And it's not because the tool and tech isn't good. It's because the people aren't confident, comfortable, not necessarily knowing how to use it. I mean, this is the whole world of what Greg and his organization do, but it does come back to the communication. So we have to build communication and transparency around 90 to 99% of people did not go to school to be data and AI professionals. Tools aren't strategies. They are tools to help a strategy succeed. And if we get rid of the part of the organization designed to help this thrive, L&D, we lose. And so I do think, I don't like going the negative route, but sometimes you have to be very honest and say, if we don't do this, we will fall behind. And then there are metrics out there. For example, this year at Davos, one of the top AI insights at Davos was reskilling. We are the skills gap. We have to reskill people. So you find the documentation, you find the studies on it, and then be very direct and have the right conversations.
And Jess, I don't know what your role is obviously within the organization, but fundamentally, like, we don't believe this is just an L&D problem. In fact, most programs that run through L&D are far less successful than ones that are run through L&D in partnership, or actually typically in leadership by the data office, the AI office, the technology office, because L&D don't really benefit from this change anywhere near as much as the senior business stakeholders and the data and AI office do. So it certainly shouldn't be an L&D only initiative to run. And if that's the way it's being steered, especially as you're right, L&D budgets, L&D headcount is being stripped back, your job, and we can help you do this because we typically work actually with the data and AI leader as our key person. We will help you communicate that this is actually a data and AI strategy point, and therefore a business strategy point, not just an L&D problem. And that's going to be a massive differentiator for you. And in terms of why that is the case, because actually, unlike a lot of L&D programs, it's extremely horizontal, impacts the business at the highest level, and delivers stuff that, again, as I said, isn't L&D focused like this. So this is an example from one of our customers. I mentioned that use case and examples of things that are either needing to be solved or being solved, pipeline growing. Well, here's some that have been solved. So one of our learners identified that a decision-making process that had really stalled. So it stalled, and it was to spend £35,000 on a solution, which was to buy new technology. And obviously, Jordan's made the point there. Technology doesn't solve all problems, but it does solve some problems. And actually, how you become more literate can help you show that potential. So she identified that the decision-making process had stopped around buying this technology because leaders didn't have the insights they needed to make a clear decision on whether they'd actually get the return that was planned. So what she did was she saw that, she learned from our program, again, a structured literacy program, a way of reframing the data, managing that up into her exec meeting, proved that it actually would, by investing £35,000, save them £400,000 annually, flipped through the storytelling module, the different story of the data, cut it in different ways, looked at it from different angles, presented it back in different ways. And all of a sudden, you've got a decision being made. So we've accelerated, we've managed up, and we've got leaders to make a decision more quickly. But also we've got a time to value benefit in the 50K region. That's payback period, and 400K annually. So massively important that people are learning from the program and going and applying that into real world conversations straight away. Secondly, you've got your kind of throughput and optimization type ROI cases. And again, this comes from a different program, but it was a project management function who were preparing their project plans on a weekly basis. And they were preparing them so they could report upwards to leaders, as many of us do. And these weren't junior people in their own right. These people were kind of like mid, like C-4, C-3 type people who were being expected to prepare these program plans and program evidence plans on a weekly basis. And what they did was they learned the hands-on mindset and hands-on skills to actually improve that, reduce that preparation from 2.5 days of their working month to 2.5 to 1 day. And all of a sudden they've saved 270 hours across the year, but that's across 7 senior leaders. So when you roll that up and believe that's probably going on across every program and project team in their organization, the numbers just become massively impactful on the ROI. And hopefully we can then evidence what they're doing differently with that time that's come back. And then finally and quickly, because we'll talk about at the end the different levers that can be pulled for evidence in ROI, but risk and effort avoidance is a massive one. Okay, so de-risking has an ROI in its own right, whether that's fine avoidance or kind of punishment avoidance. But in this case, due to, believe it or not, a data quality module or a data quality section of the learning. And some people would say data quality seems quite boring for business people, but actually it's incredibly important as we move forward into the AI world, because we don't have good AI without good data quality. But what happened was this person realized that some of the data that was going through to a vendor they were working with, a partner they were working with, was incorrect and showing an underperformance on their side. And it took them actually looking at it at a line by line item to work out that, yeah, the quality was wrong and there was a fix to be done here. But what that actually prevented downstream was they were about to have a program team of 6 senior leaders undertake a kind of week-long investigation into why this was going on. And that was therefore 60 hours avoided. But the other thing it did was it actually unblocked payment for that program taking place, because at that point that payment from the supplier was blocked by the fact that they couldn't prove that they'd done the work. So just by getting round data quality and really thinking about it and teaching people data quality in the right way, making it engaging, making it applied to their work, you've got people identifying real problems to unlock significant risks and therefore make a load of money and get a load of cash flow through the organization. Jordan, anything that you want to fill in on any of those examples?
I was just thinking I'd chime on that. I think part of it is, and I think Carissa just nailed it with a comment to Jess's question that leads into you here. And she said, I would also say trying to reframe this, meaning the whole L&D side of it, less about just reskilling, but as a business imperative that will increase critical thinking and forward movement, innovation, etc. And then you talk about that from a data quality, because you're right. AI is the sexy topic. Data quality is not. But your AI is just absolutely going to be trash if you don't have data quality. So let's make data quality more sexy, more data literacy, more a part of the vision. And it's not just a reskilling. It is an imperative. And I really like how Carissa said this. This is about a business succeeding into the future without taking these proper steps. And one of those is governance and quality. You can't hope to succeed going forward. And I think that is absolutely critical for people to understand. I had this, I believe, conversation just last week. I was in DC doing a workshop and someone brought that up. They brought up, what about data governance and all this? I said, you're right. It needs to be a fundamental part of data literacy, and people need to understand where they fit on that lineage. And I think that's a part of this.
And I think the bit that we are starting to lose in the speed of development of AI literacy is that data literacy is as important a part of AI literacy as it ever was of data literacy, almost. Like things like quality, governance, behaviors, doing things the right way, they are an imperative of AI literacy. They are not only a data literacy thing. And a good example of, to Carissa's point about preparing organizations for the future, the surrounding context of this example is they had just signed off a £300 million version of the same program, which if these data quality issues hadn't been identified now, would have been 3.5x worse as that program moved forward over the next 3 years. So like getting things right now set us up to make better decisions and use AI more readily in the future as well. So massively important that we get the people thinking in the right way and changing their mindset and their behaviors. And a lot of this comes down to, because we frame this as how does the CDO think about ROI, but I think the CDO should be thinking about ROI nonstop. But how has the CDAO role changed? And Jordan, you're obviously US based. I was in the US a couple of weeks ago. And I think one of the things that's most interesting is the way that the CDAO role is changing so rapidly in the US. And as is always the case, the UK will follow. And I think in the past, the view of that role and the thing that people hired for, and good friends and partners with Kyle Winterbottom at Orbition, and were very much on the same wavelength in terms of one of the challenges here. Businesses hire for the wrong thing and they hire with the wrong thing in mind. And that is the past, right? Which is they're hiring people to be CDOs, to arrange insights, do the hands-on experiments. They're hiring them for their technical expertise. They're hiring for the ability to manage analysts and engineers. Actually, what really came across from the Data IQ 100 event in Nashville, and I'll let you kind of build on this from a US market perspective in a moment, but again, the UK market's very fast follow on this, is that actually now your role as a CDAO is really about decision intelligence. It's about the speed of how we make decisions as a business, the outcomes we achieve from those, how we manage to do that and operationalize it at scale. So it isn't just about having good data people who can do data things or AI people who do AI things. It's about how do we actually scale that across all the operations in the business and being the SME in that space, which can be really hard. If you're a data leader yourself and AI is quite new to you, but you're being leaned on for all the expertise from the other senior people in the business around AI and operationalizing AI, that is hard. It is a change management role. The really exciting thing about all the CDOs, CDAOs, CTOs as well, to be fair, that we met in America was they all described it as an organizational change process. This is not just about a technology program anymore and commerciality that makes you an enterprise operator. That's the big thing that was very, very clear. All the CDOs, all the senior data people and AI people we met in the US, they were very, very clear that they have to know the business and the business's ways of working, strategy, operations as well as they could. And we've actually just run a really nice program at one of the big pension funds here, where the whole program wasn't actually about their business people becoming data and AI literate. It was about their data professionals and their AI professionals and their technology professionals becoming more business literate. So we taught them about business strategy and business operating models and how the data and AI could help those. So that is a different way of looking at literacy and a different way of looking at the role. Jordan, anything that you're seeing in the US?
Well, you nailed it. Literacy is two sides of the exact same coin. There's data literacy for the non-data professionals, and there's business literacy for the data professionals. And for me, that's actually what my fourth book was, right? Business 101 for the data professional, because I think when data literacy started taking off, there were misconceptions or people were blaming non-data people for data things not working. That's not what that is. It's that data people don't have the business background. Business people don't necessarily have the data background. They both understand it to an extent, but it's the old adage, the rising tide lifts all boats. Now, that being said, the CDAO role or a CAIO role, whatever you want to call these things, they have to start being integrated as true business partners. Years ago, they would isolate it out potentially. CDO sits over here, or it doesn't report directly to the CEO. But what I think has occurred is, you're right, it is decision catalyst, it is business operation catalyst. That's what these roles are. And historically, that's not necessarily what they have been tasked with. But AI has reshaped all that and had to, because AI is as good as its data. We talked about that. And in order for these things to truly compete, your data and AI strategy is just your business strategy and how data and AI support it. That's it. And so in order for the CDAO role to really succeed, it has to be integrated fully, not separate. And as we keep doing that, and as Carissa said, the change management side of things, I think that go beyond just business literacy for the CDAO role, but change management literacy, if we want to call it that, absolutely is critical for these things to succeed.
100%. I think a CDAO who doesn't understand behavioral science and doesn't understand the impact that decisions and operating ways of working can have on people is really going to struggle over the next few years, because adoption is all about behavioral science and behavioral change. Okay, so what do we actually need from the CDAO role then? And if you're in this room and you're thinking, well, I do want to be a CDAO in 2 years' time or 5 years' time, whatever it is, getting your head around these things being your priority now, not the things that we've always over-indexed on, like technical capability, like product delivery, data products being released, etc., is really it's going to be the thing that changes the game for you. Fundamentally, like the amount of CDAOs or CDOs, etc., that I speak to who still can't really articulate the business strategy, the commercial strategy, why their role in that as a department is so important, it's painful, and it really does make it a difficult conversation when that person then goes to speak to the CEO or the CFO, the COO. And if we lose them, then we lose the whole thing. And that's why I think we get such a high rotation of jobs in this area. That change architecture that Jordan and I have both just referenced, you want to be checking out things like University College London's kind of combi behavioral science model, trying to get your head around that type of thing so that you really understand, like, how are people motivated? What makes them make decisions? What makes them refuse to do certain things? Because if you don't understand it at that behavioral science level, you won't understand what you need to do to influence your peers, influence the people above you, influence the rest of the organization to be part of it. And then you are also an evidence producer. How does my team help key senior leaders to prove they should or shouldn't do something? Not prove what has or hasn't been done, because that's always been the way, but like, we're about to make a decision, whether it's either in a manual way or an AI way. Have we got the data set, the AI, the evidence to show that we are making the right decision, and we're about to make the right decision based on that? And that, I think, is a different strategic leader to the types of leaders that we've had in the last 5 to 10 years. And then let's get into the biggest reasons data and AI programs stall and fail. And we will ask for either responses to that question that's at the bottom in the chat, or if anybody's brave enough to kind of go on the mic, we'll ask for that too. Although I might be told that people can't access the mic. I was supposed to get that information. So we'll see. The biggest reasons that data and AI programs stall and fail is that the capability that's built doesn't automatically result in change behavior. Going back to that example, 7,000 Copilot licenses, less than 50% being used and adopted. Just because you've bought the capability, you might even have built it really well, you might have everything you need in it. It doesn't mean that people are actually going to start using it that way. Investment is unjustified when outcomes are unmeasured. I'll talk about this on a later slide, but one of the biggest reasons to measure is to show that what you've done is valuable. And people complain that their budgets are being torn up and like they're being reduced and it's hard yards at the moment. Usually it's because there's no value been proven previously, because you've just done the do, you've not proven that it's worked. And then literacy and fluency shouldn't be treated as an event, okay? Just like investing in infrastructure and architecture and that being something that you do for the rest of time, and rebuilding and redesigning processes being something you do for the rest of time, literacy or fluency programs should not be treated as a one-off. They are a cultural change and a cultural maintenance piece, and they should be a foundational part of that infrastructure of a data and AI office. Jordan, anything you want to talk about while we just wait for some more ideas to come in around where orgs are stuck and why, and then maybe we can massage people through some of those reasons and give them some ideas.
Yeah, like for me, I would say amen to everything you said. And then the other one right now is, I do think if we were to put a fourth bullet on here, is there's a world of fatigue and overwhelm happening right now. I think that people are kind of tired of hearing about AI. Let's be honest. Like I had my daughter graduate high school last week, and you started to see people were getting booed at commencement speeches. Eric Schmidt, former CEO of Google, got booed for talking about AI. And Steve Wozniak of Apple fame got cheered because he defined AI as actual intelligence. And I think that right now, part of the change management and part of what organizations really have to get a hold of is creating safety and dialogue, that these things are not here to replace them. They are here to help them. They are here to empower them and to make them better employees and make the organization better. In fact, just this morning, I saw two articles, one from Jensen Huang of NVIDIA and one from Google DeepMind CEO. Both of them were saying AI layoffs are lazy and stupid. That's what they said. And these are two masters of AI. They said, why are we doing this? That's not what this is about. And I did a whole Substack on it today. And the reality of it is, I think that a fourth bullet point on here is that overwhelm, the fatigue, the fear, what's going to happen. So I'm not going to touch it. And I think that sits with all of us, but mainly leadership really needs to get behind the message. And I know at the organization Agile One I work for, the president who I report to and we message all the time, and Carissa works with me, we message all the time that we're not here to replace you. This is to augment you and make you better. And the solutions we are building are doing that. So it's foundational. It's not an event. It's there for outcomes. It's change behavior. but it's there to support, not replace. And I think that is key for people to want to adopt certain things so that they do not fear something's going to happen to them.
Fully agree. Okay. As we can tell, because I keep having to wipe my brow, I'm getting warmer as we're going through this hour. So now would be a good time to take some questions and comments from the room, and then I can do some thinking rather than some energized presenting. So have we had anything come in around where
so I can read it to you here.
We can try and.
Yeah, so Stuart said, typically we are seeing that programs fail due to lack of leadership capability, limited or uncoordinated communication, lack of initial engagement, and the understanding of where data sits in the context to the change organizations are I think it meant trying to bring about. 100%, Stuart, this is that whole change management side that gets so vastly forgotten in this space, right? It's this inability to see every new dashboard that is built, every new AI solution that comes through, all of this is change that is hitting people. And unless it's managed right, good, transparent communication, the purpose around it, the why around it, upskilling and reskilling where needed, it's again, and I think one of the things I've kind of had an epiphany on recently is one of the reasons organizations buy AI tools and say, look at what we did, is that makes them feel like they accomplished something. It didn't drive behavior change, but it makes them feel like something's been done. But we got to move beyond that. Discomfort is a good thing. It's like going to the gym. You literally break your muscles down so that they grow. We need to do the same thing here. And I know that's hard, but that's the communication, transparency, what benefits are coming, and so forth. Anything from you, Greg? And I'll talk a lot during this section so you can, catch your breath in the heat over there.
That's all good. I think I'd just go back to one of those really early slides where it said 3x faster adoption from a structured program, right? Like, it's so easy for businesses, and we get this all the time. We phone a company up and they're like, oh, we already do literacy. Okay, do you? What do you do? Oh, well, our L&D team have run some webinars. And it's like, yeah, but that hasn't had impact because it wasn't structured. So, Jordan, to your point there about like structured comms, structured learning, like that word structured is really important, and structured rollouts of change programs, structured rollouts of data products, structured rollouts of literacy programs. I think people do everything too ad hoc because the expectation is still that build it and they will come. And actually when they don't, everyone panics and then they just sweep it under the carpet and say, well, that didn't work, the next one will. Actually, if you're not doing it in a structured way, if you're not willing to spend money on doing it in a structured way, it will burn you.
Yeah, and great reference to the movie Field of Dreams, everyone. I've got my hat right there. Field of Dreams. I've got a baseball from the diamond I got in like 1990. So best movie ever, my favorite. Great reference, Greg. If you build it, they will come is not real in data and AI. So let's just put that out there. So I'm going to read what Carissa said, because Carissa works with me, and I do think she has a point. And this is where I think we need to understand that this is fundamental. Carissa said, I'd say our org is stuck bridging a divide that's happening where we have some strong adopters at the independent contributor level, while some of our higher leaders are struggling to implement it. Then we've got the fatigue of knowing theoretically there could be time saving with strong data and AI use, but the time it takes to learn it isn't something many of our middle management, especially, but really all levels, have bandwidth for. 100%. We have some leaders in our company that have dove in and are using it and driving it, and they talk about it and they thrive. And then we have some that haven't. In the meantime, I think a lot of companies are time strapped right now, right? Everybody's got busy jobs. But I would argue, and Carissa would probably know this because I helped mentor her and we become good friends, there's a lot of work that is being done in our company that doesn't need to be done. Just end of story. And I think that's at every company. It is a comfort thing to keep holding on to the things you want to hold on to. And so there is, and thankfully our company president is very vocal about things and supportive of what we're doing. But that the literacy side of things, I think people need to realize there's multi-layers to it. It's not everyone learning the same. Senior leaders have to learn at one level, mid-level at a different level, everyone else at a different level. And so if you're not approaching that literacy change at the top while also trying to upskill everybody, you're going to run into this wall where they're not setting aside time. They're not devoting enough time to make this work. Then I just say good luck, because if you're not devoting the right amount of time, it's just not going to work. It's not a magic bullet.
100%. And that's why really since the day we released our leaders program, it's been one of our most popular. I mean, we only had operators programs probably for the first 2 years of the business. Since the day we released our leaders program, it's been part of every single program, because you have to give them a structured space to overcome a lot of their legacy behaviors and mindsets, which leaders are more likely to have because they're typically older, typically more set in their ways, typically in leadership positions because of their knowledge and their expertise, which makes all of this a lot scarier. So yeah, no, fully agree. Anything else about why orgs have been stuck?
Let's see what else we got here. This is one right here, and Jess nailed it. And this is something we've talked about. AI is fun when it makes people into cartoon dolls, but not when it's a threat to income or job security. I don't think there's enough around how to protect yourself using AI and data. And this, yes, individually, this is that skill, reskilling, etc. But at the leadership level, I echo what Jensen Huang and Google DeepMind CEO said. Laying people off and letting them go for AI right now is dumb. AI has been around forever. Generative AI is in infant stages. And to just let people go because we're investing in AI, good luck is what I say to that. Versus, this is what my Substack post was on, and maybe I'll throw it into the chat. It's around how do we sit here and reinvent work? That's one of the things data and AI is giving us the ability to do. How many of us don't have tasks we hate doing? So rethink it. Versus, hey, let's invest in AI, throw everybody off. Another thing that has come about lately is the cost of token economics versus human economics, meaning the tokens behind AI can be more expensive than hiring a human.
Yeah.
But it's that lack of understanding that it's a shiny object. Don't look into it. Go build as if you want to succeed with it, and you'll be much better off.
Yeah, token economics is going to be, it makes an expensive cat picture when you've got 10,000 people making a cat picture every day, and it's costing you, gosh knows how many tokens to get that.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Okay, so in that evidence producer bucket, and I think that's a really interesting one, because it really comes down to, why do you measure ROI? Why is it so important for us as data and AI people and tech people to measure ROI? Okay, so the first is, who are we trying to convince here? If all you were trying to convince was yourself for your own budget, your budget would be easy. But you're not. Actually, what you're trying to do is convince your team that this is going to be valuable and they should want to be part of it. Your leaders that this is going to be valuable and they want to be part of it. Finance and the budget process that it's going to be valuable and they should invest in it. The answer to that is like, it changes everything, right? So each of those lenses has a different return requirement. So with your team, probably going to be more in that kind of ROE, return on employee type bracket, where it's like, it's going to make your life easier, guys. Honestly, it'll be worth doing because you won't have to do that crappy thing you don't like doing. Like, that is a very different conversation as an audience to your finance director, who is going to ultimately want to see pounds, pence, dollars, and cents returns on this big old investment they're about to make. What happens if you don't measure it? I think this is a big one. I think in a lot of cases, from everything we've observed in the sector, CDOs, CTOs, CIOs have lived in this nirvana state where they've never had to measure stuff because people have just kept throwing more money at tech, kept throwing more money at data, now throwing more money at AI. What happens though is, at some point, that thing that was the sexiest thing in the market becomes defunded because it wasn't sexy anymore and it didn't deliver the ROI that was promised. In a lot of cases, probably not because it didn't actually deliver the ROI, because you never asked for it to be measured and you never got agreement from the business leaders that it should be measured so you could prove that it could be funded again. And as soon as that hype train stops, you will lose funding for AI, just like you have for data, just like you have for IT previously, unless we all go about understanding that if we don't ask to be measured and prove the measures, we won't be successful. And then what counts as evidence, okay? Is it a number? Is it a pounds, pence, dollars and cents? Is it a story that of how the business has changed the way of operating, or a person has changed their way of thinking? I mean, we have I've got a really nice story internally that is actually related to one of our clients as well. So this for me is the value, one of the values of return on employee or even return on investment of data literacy. We have recently hired a lady into one of our analytics roles who used to work on her year in industry between her university course at Bentley Motors, who are one of our long-standing clients, right? So Bentley were one of our first clients and they've been a client ever since. She actually did her year out with Bentley, had never thought about data as a career, went on one of our programs, and all of a sudden was like, I think I want data to be my job. I think this is great. This is how I prove that like data is valuable to this business. Then she went back to university. She did a bit more of her degree. She did a master's degree in analytics. And now she works for us in the industry. So that story in itself of how has data literacy in a structured way changed someone's career and changed the way that they think about how they use data in their career, that story could be enough for some people to win their hearts and minds. It's probably not going to answer the CFO's big question, which is a really good acid test, by the way. If you feel you've got an ROI case or a value case, the question to ask yourself is, if you sat down with your CFO tomorrow, would she agree that that is ROI? Because if she wouldn't, you lose, okay? So all those things, the numbers, the stories, the narrative, the befores, the afters, they all contribute to this measurement and this success story. But the big question will often be, would your CFO sign it off tomorrow as an ROI they agree on? And that can be a really good acid test to kind of pressure test your own measures. Anything you want to add, Jordan? Oh, have I frozen? Has Jordan frozen? I'm going to carry on because it's all I can do. Hopefully Jordan will come back in a moment, or somebody will ping me to tell me that it's not me that's frozen. Okay, so what does value really mean? It's not all about pounds and pence, dollars and cents, just to be super clear. So a really interesting thing to think about is that price isn't value. So just because you've spent £5,000 on something and feel you've got it cheap, or just because you've spent £500,000 on something and feel like you spent a lot, that isn't equivalent of value. So one of our senior leaders talks about this in a really interesting way, right? He spends what I see as an exorbitant amount of money on his gym membership on a monthly basis. He spends over £200 at David Lloyd on his gym membership. And he sees that as the best money he spends in his month. Not because he's jacked and he loves being jacked, but because he sees it as an investment in longer term health and time with his daughter. So the longer he lives, the more time he gets to live with his family, his friends, his daughter. Therefore, that £200 is the best money he spends. Whereas I see it as really, really expensive. It's value to him, it's price to me. And the reason we need to be able to show return and show value and have a vision for success is that one person's expensive is somebody else's value. The context of that changes everything, like I've just said. So your ability to position value to your CFO or to that audience that we talked about earlier as your team or your senior leader or whatever it might be, context, being able to communicate that context and frame that context is really important for proving value and proving ROI. And then the insight. So what are we doing today and what does that look like in future that proves that point? What is the evidence that proves the value? Okay, so those three things you need to be thinking about at all times. And Jordan is now back, I believe. So we've not gone very far from the evidence producer slide and why would you measure ROI? But with the context of like what value really means and why you'd measure ROI in the first place, do you want to add anything?
Well, so I hate to go back because there were a couple questions in there talks about, and I'll do it right with adding that value. So earlier, I think it was Stuart said, and he shared that quote, it won't be AI that takes your job, but the person who can use it that will. And then Jess commented on Ian's post, would be interested in how to approach this too. Ian's got a point. It's easier to get the data AI interested on board, but what about those who aren't naturally drawn to it or even actively against it? I think your story about the person who wasn't even considering data, now they got a master in data, is a great point to this. But with Stuart on, it's not AI that's going to take the job, but people that use it. Yeah, that's probably true. There's also the fact that AI will create new jobs. Then you've got people who are disinterested in. It all boils down to messaging, right? It all boils down to how we're telling the narrative and the story. Data doesn't change a person's mind. And I think I've probably said that in these webinars. It's narrative that does. So what are the stories that we're telling to the CFO to really show value? You can go to the next slide, Greg. What are we doing to actually help people drive value? Well, for the individual perspective, it's job security. It's being able to compete in a very weird job market right now. It's being able to get to insight, better bonuses, better promotions, etc. For a CFO, it's showing decisions. It's showing catalyst. It's showing innovation. It's showing creation. All these things boil down to, and a lot of times, the communication around it, getting people on board, as Jess and Ian are talking about, even if they're actively against it. Some of it is helping them come on by getting them involved in projects. Some of it is teaching them that we're not trying to take their job away, but that their experience, and I think that's also the messaging we have to share is gut feel, intuition, experience don't go away. Those are just personal data points that we combine with the data in AI. And by doing all that, you're creating the messaging and the narrative that delivers value. And that means value for a person and for an organization.
Fully agree. It's why the structure, going back to that word structured, it's why the structure around the learning is so important, because you're absolutely right, Ian. People don't just jump out of bed tomorrow and think, I want to learn about data and AI if they didn't yesterday. So what do we have to do? So again, sitting in this room as a data or an AI professional, going back to Jordan's point and his fourth book, which you can post in the chat, because it's a good one in terms of that business literacy lens for data professionals. Do you really understand what these mean? And that's not a patronizing question. I don't mean it in that way, but like, do you as a data person sat in this room really understand how revenue is realized? How costs are saved, not by like reducing the cost of your servers, but how are they saved on an operational front line? Do you really understand what keeps your chief risk officer or your DPO or your chief compliance officer up at night? Because that stuff, that gets value realized and gets projects signed off and all those types of things. Do you really genuinely understand the difference between CapEx and OpEx and what that means and how capital is allocated and why spending in one month versus a different month, or a cash flow positive versus a cash flow negative, or return on investment or time to realize investment is important? If you don't, then you probably need to. And do you really understand the return on employee metrics that we're talking about? So time of tenure and employee satisfaction, all those types of things. And it's really important to say that data and AI literacy drives all of these and gives you an opportunity to observe all of these in real time within your business. So an example for revenue, data and AI literacy is accurate pipeline data. Something that is a constant conversation in our business is the accuracy of the data that exists in HubSpot, which is our CRM. And that is a data problem, because what it gives us by constantly revisiting that message is trusted forecasts, better insight into customers, and ultimately teams of salespeople and marketing people who understand their data and understand their CRM data are better at driving revenue and selling. So the connection of fluency to revenue becomes super apparent, and fluency and data quality to revenue becomes super apparent. Cost, automation of manual reporting, elimination of duplicate work. So many businesses have multiple teams spun up solving the same problem, because nobody's looking at it as a data and an AI and a horizontal problem. They're looking at it as a point solution in their business unit. That isn't good enough. A part of data and AI fluency is the ability to understand things horizontally and understand where you might be facing the same problem as a business, and reach out to somebody in a different team and say, you're upstream of us, you're probably facing this too. We can save you a load of time because we've already solved this problem. Risk management, early surfacing of challenges like the one I mentioned earlier, where the person's identified the data quality problem. God forbid AI had rolled over it, but they've identified the problem. And rather than 6 managers having to spend the next week or two working out what within their processes has gone wrong, they've become more data literate, identified the data quality problem, and they've solved it. Capital allocation. Are we making investments of CapEx or OpEx based on evidence and agreed ROI cases that we then measure after the fact? If you've not got data and AI literacy amongst your people, they're not going to care to do that. So they're not going to do the business case in the right way. They're certainly not going to track it downstream. Actually, you need people to want to do that process well, because it gives you the value realization you're hoping to see. And then the people piece is super simple, right? Have they got the confidence to challenge the way to think about solving problems differently that you as a data and AI team can't see right now? You've got this big overarching data and AI strategy that fundamentally comes down to whether the people on the front line can see it and be bothered to do it. And can they see the problems you promise to fix? Maybe, maybe not, but literacy really, really helps with that. I'm just going to skip forwards just because we are running out of time, and just say that the enterprise behavioral shift that actually needs to happen to deliver ROI is moving away from the things on the left, like legacy mindsets, resistance, siloed data ownership, siloed data in departments, fear of dashboards turning red and therefore people getting in trouble and things being swept under the carpet as a result. And we have to make it a behavioral change and change management process, which gives us radical transparency, everybody being willing to show their problems and fix them, data being shared horizontally across the organization, and then rewarding the fact that people are flagging when things are going wrong. If you are a people leader, either inside or outside the data and AI offices, the best thing you can possibly do is when someone brings a problem that data is showing to you, sing it from the rooftops, because you can fix that problem and people will therefore bring you more problems that can be fixed and make your business better. I'm going to let Jordan do his own little summary, and then we've got time for one question, but we are running out of time. So.
No, I'm just going to say, hey, man, I love the audience participation, the questions, all of that, because the reality around it is Greg and I can share our thoughts, but we need to hear from everybody. So just a huge shout out. There is value behind this, and it's not about replacing people. It's about redefining what we do. And so grateful for the chance, as always, to the Academy to be here.
Wonderful. Any questions come in late doors that we could?
No, nothing more besides the fact that I lost power. So there we go.
Okay, no worries at all. We somewhat smoothly sailed through that. I did ask the question a couple of times, and I was like, I don't think he's there anymore.
No.
So yeah, we got through that. That was all good. As always, guys, thank you so much for joining. We are running one or more webinars on a monthly basis. Get them in your inboxes, get signed up for them, bring your thoughts, bring your ideas, get engaged with them. And if you've got any topics that you want to hear about, send them into the team at hello@dl-academy.com. That's hello@dl-academy.com. And we will build a webinar about the topics that are interesting to you, because we care about that an awful lot. Thank you very much. Have a lovely rest of your very warm Tuesday.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.